Hey story lovers! If you're into mystery, suspense, and unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe, relax, and let's dive into today's story. Zara and Julian's marriage began under the weight of tradition and family expectations. Zara, a driven marketing executive from New York, and Julian, a calm architect from London, had never met before their families arranged their union. Both carried hopes that love would grow, but deep down, neither truly knew what to expect. Their wedding was a grand celebration blending cultures, with smiles and blessings all around. Zara's eyes shone with excitement and nerves, while Julian stood composed, ready to meet the role expected of him. They promised forever, but beneath the surface lay a fragile truth: they were strangers. In the early days, Zara and Julian lived cautiously side by side, exchanging polite words but rarely connecting. Zara, full of energy and dreams, longed for deep conversations and shared adventures. Julian preferred quiet, structured routines and found emotional expression difficult. Their different personalities created a silent tension neither dared to address. They attended family dinners and social events, always presenting themselves as the perfect couple. But inside, both felt isolated. Zara's nights were restless, filled with longing for warmth and understanding. Julian wrestled with his own fears of failure and disappointment. Their home felt more like a hotel than a sanctuary. The distance between them grew, cloaked by polite smiles and forced normalcy. Friends and family praised their happiness, unaware of the emptiness behind closed doors. Both feared breaking the illusion. The idea of admitting their marriage was failing felt like admitting defeat, risking shame and judgment. So, they stayed silent, trapped by expectations and unable to find a way back to each other. Zara and Julian's story was one of two people caught in the perfect illusion, a marriage that looked flawless to the outside world but felt hollow within. The question lingered: could love find a way, or was this just the beginning of a deeper failure? As months passed, the perfect illusion began to show its cracks. Zara and Julian's differences, once easy to overlook, now grew impossible to ignore. Small disagreements turned into cold silences, and the distance that was once subtle became painfully clear. Zara's desire for connection grew stronger. She tried initiating conversations, planning outings, and sharing her feelings, hoping Julian would open up. But Julian's responses remained distant, his mind often elsewhere. He buried himself in work and avoided emotional talks, fearing conflict more than loneliness. One evening, Zara planned a surprise dinner to celebrate their 6-month anniversary. She decorated their apartment, cooked a special meal, and waited eagerly for Julian to come home. But when he arrived late and distracted, barely acknowledging her efforts, the hurt in Zara's heart deepened. They tried to discuss their issues, but every conversation seemed to spiral into misunderstandings. Julian's calm demeanor clashed with Zara's emotional intensity. They both felt unheard and unappreciated, trapped in a cycle of blame and silence. Family gatherings became awkward. Relatives would ask about their happiness, and both masked their pain with polite smiles and vague answers. Behind closed doors, their arguments grew sharper, fueled by frustration and unmet expectations. Zara began doubting the marriage she once hoped would bring her joy. She wondered if love could ever blossom between two people so different, forced together by circumstance. Julian, too, questioned if he could meet the role of husband and partner, or if he was simply pretending to live a life he didn't want. The foundation of their relationship was crumbling, and neither knew how to fix the cracks. The silence between them grew louder, and the walls they built around their hearts became thicker. Yet, despite the growing pain, both clung to hope that this was just a difficult phase, that time would heal their wounds, and that they could still find their way back to each other. But as the cracks widened, it became clear that the perfect illusion was fragile, and their marriage was on the brink of collapse. The cracks in Zara and Julian's marriage widened until they reached a breaking point neither could ignore. The tension that had built silently exploded during an ordinary evening that turned into a storm of emotions. It started with a simple disagreement about Julian's long work hours. Zara felt neglected and unseen, her efforts to keep their relationship alive dismissed. Julian, overwhelmed by pressure and his own insecurities, felt attacked and unappreciated. Words were exchanged sharply, words that hurt more than intended, exposing years of unspoken frustration. For the first time, they argued openly about their feelings. Zara voiced her loneliness and disappointment, confessing that she feared their marriage was a failure. Julian admitted he felt trapped and inadequate, scared to open up because he didn't want to disappoint anyone. But the conversation did not heal, it fractured their fragile bond. They realized they had been living parallel lives, strangers sharing the same space. The love they once hoped for seemed like a distant memory. That night, Zara packed a bag and left the house, overwhelmed by sadness and confusion. Julian sat alone in the empty apartment, feeling the weight of loss and failure. The next days were filled with silence and avoidance. Family and friends noticed the tension, whispering about what might be wrong. Both Zara and Julian pretended everything was fine, but inside, they wrestled with their next steps. They met to discuss their future, facing the painful reality that their marriage might not survive. Neither wanted to admit defeat, but both knew they couldn't keep living a lie. The decision to separate, maybe even divorce, hung heavily between them. Yet, despite the heartbreak, there was a faint glimmer of respect and understanding. They recognized that sometimes, love alone is not enough, especially when two people grow apart in silence. Their marriage, once a perfect illusion, had shattered. The breaking point was not just an end but also a moment of truth, a chance to face reality and choose what came next. After the painful decision to separate, Zara and Julian found themselves navigating the difficult process of healing and rebuilding their lives apart. The divorce was finalized quietly, without drama, but the emotional scars ran deep. Zara moved to a small apartment in the city, focusing on her career and rediscovering herself. She spent long evenings reflecting on the marriage, the hopes, the failures, and the lessons learned. The pain of loss lingered, but so did a growing sense of freedom. For the first time, Zara began to understand her own needs and desires beyond the expectations of others. Julian retreated to his family home in London, seeking comfort among familiar faces. He too reflected on his role in the marriage's failure, the walls he built around his emotions and the silence that kept them apart. Julian started therapy, determined to understand himself better and break the patterns that had caused distance. Though separated, Zara and Julian's paths crossed occasionally at mutual friends' gatherings or family events. The initial awkwardness slowly gave way to a quieter, more mature connection. They began to communicate with honesty and respect, acknowledging the pain but also the growth. Zara found solace in writing, pouring her emotions into words that helped her heal. Julian threw himself into architectural projects that allowed him to express creativity and openness he once feared. Their lives moved forward on separate but parallel paths, healing, growing, and learning to live authentically. Though their marriage had failed, it was not the end of their story. The painful experience became a catalyst for self-discovery and change, laying a foundation for healthier relationships in the future. Time had softened the sharp edges of Zara and Julian's past. Though their marriage ended in divorce, the lessons and growth it sparked opened doors neither expected. Zara, now more confident and self-aware, began dating again cautiously. She approached new relationships with honesty and clear boundaries, refusing to lose herself as she once did. Her career flourished, but she remained open to the possibility of love, this time, on her own terms. Julian, too, embraced change. Therapy helped him understand his emotions and communicate more openly. He sought connections based on trust and mutual respect rather than obligation or pressure. One day, fate brought Zara and Julian together again, not as husband and wife, but as friends who had shared a difficult journey. They met for coffee, smiling genuinely, the awkwardness replaced by warmth and understanding. Their conversation was filled with reflections, laughter, and even hope. They acknowledged the past without bitterness and celebrated the personal growth that came from pain. Neither expected to rekindle their romance, but they recognized something valuable, a friendship built on acceptance and honesty. Zara and Julian parted ways that day with a renewed sense of peace. Their marriage had failed, but it had also taught them resilience and the courage to seek happiness in new forms. This was not an ending but a new beginning, a chance to live authentically and embrace the future without fear.